Hello, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Dearest Mother's Darkest Secrets, where we unravel the most chilling stories of mothers whose actions leave us questioning everything we thought we knew about family and love. I am your host, Teri True Crime, and today we continue our journey into the shadows where motherhood takes a dark and twisted turn. But before we begin today's show, let's take a moment to reflect on some of the disturbing cases we've already uncovered in this series. From the twisted tale of Jennifer and Sarah Hart to the dark and disturbing tale of Susan Smith, whose actions stunned an entire nation. Each of these cases reveals a mother's darkest secrets. And today, we continue to uncover another tragic story with unimaginable consequences. So, pour yourself a glass of wine, take a deep breath, and join me as we dive deep into the chilling case of Andrea Yates, a name that has become synonymous with one of the most tragic and controversial cases of maternal filicide in American history. Was Andrea a monster or a victim of a system that failed her? Andrea Pia Kennedy Yates was born on July 3rd, 1964, in Houston, Texas, my hometown, and I was also born in July, but not in 1964. Andrea was the youngest of five children in a Catholic family. She suffered from bulimia and depression during her teenage years, and it is reported that at the age of 17, she spoke to a friend about suicide. In 1982, Yates graduated high school as the class valedictorian, captain of the swim team, and as an officer in the National Honor Society. Guys, she was smart and she was athletic. Okay? That's I just summed it up for them. She was a high achieving student and she graduated from the University of Texas School of Nursing in 1986. Andrea worked as a registered nurse until she married Rusty Yates, who was a NASA engineer, on April 17th, 1993. Now, the couple decided to have as many children as nature allowed, resulting in five children: Noah, John, Paul, Luke, and Mary. Now, I want to say right now, at no point in time will I ever shame someone for wanting a big family. My grandmother, my mama, wanted to have a baker's dozen, which that's 13 kids. That's a lot of kids. Thankfully, she did not have that many. So I am not going to shame anyone for that. For me, two was plenty. Now, Andrea and Rusty were a religious family, but they were not members of any local church. Instead, they hosted a Bible study group in their home and they followed a radical fundamentalist preacher named Michael Warnacki. Not sure I'm saying that right, so we're just going to call him Michael. Michael's rhetoric was a fire and brimstone type. I'm sure with everything going on in the media lately, everybody knows what fire and brimstone types are. Michael's proclamations included the following: Hell is right on the doorstep, waiting to bring you in. Okay. Parents were especially responsible for ensuring the salvation of their children. He would say, lest they perish in hellfire. He also said that parents ought to commit suicide rather than cause their children to stumble and go to hell. Okay, the fact that anyone would sit there and say parents should commit suicide if their children stumble in life is horrific to me because To the best of my knowledge, every human has stumbled in life. That does not mean they are going to go to hell. It's part of life. Now, there are some things, if you're religious, that if you do, I am Catholic, if you break a commandment, yeah, they say you're going to go to hell if you don't ask for forgiveness and atone for your sins. But I just want to say anyone advocating for parents to commit suicide is wrong. Okay. Just want to get that out there. Now, as we heard, when Andrea was a teenager, she did suffer with depression and bulimia. So, guys, her struggle with mental illness continued after the birth of her first child, Noah, in 1994. She suffered from postpartum depression, which worsened after the births of her subsequent children. Guys, I have to tell you, hormones for pregnant women are a lot. When you get pregnant, you have the baby after, there's a lot of hormonal things going on. And from everything I've read and learned, it happens. If you get it once, it's going to continue to happen. Now, despite her deteriorating mental health, Andrea took care of the household, homeschooled the children, and took care of her father, who was suffering from Alzheimer's disease. Guys, just that right there would stress anyone's mental capacity. Taking care of a household, homeschooling children, and taking care of your father, that is enough. And she was a young mom. So that is a lot. And we're going to find out a little bit later that her husband, Rusty, was not the greatest help. He wanted a lot of kids. He just didn't want to have to take care of them. Now, in 1999, after the birth of their fourth child, Luke, Andrea's depression resurfaced. Rusty found her shaking and chewing her fingers. The next day, she attempted suicide by overdosing on pills, leading her to be hospitalized and prescribed antidepressants. Soon after her release, Andrea begged Rusty to let her die as she held a knife up to her neck. Once again, she was hospitalized and she was given a lot of different medications, including Haldol, which is an antipsychotic medication. They say her condition improved immediately and she appeared temporarily stabilized. Now, a few months later, Andrea had another breakdown, which culminated in two more suicide attempts and two more psychiatric hospitalizations. She was subsequently diagnosed with postpartum psychosis. Now, against the advice of medical professionals, Andrea and Rusty Yates decided to have another child. Andrea stopped taking Haldol in March of 2000 and got pregnant with her daughter, Mary, 7 weeks after being discharged from the psychiatric facility. Guys, doctors give us advice. And if you don't like your doctor's advice, maybe get a second opinion, but just don't discount their medical advice. After the birth of their daughter, Mary, Andrea's condition seemed to steady until the death of her father on March 12th, 2001. She then stopped taking all medication, mutilated herself, and read the Bible feverishly, and she stopped feeding baby Mary. She became so incapacitated that she required immediate hospitalization. It is at this time that she came under the care of Dr. Mohammed Saeed. She was treated and then released. However, just a month later, she degenerated back into a near catatonic state and filled the bathtub in the middle of the day, but did not take a bath. Andrea was hospitalized the next day, and her psychiatrist determined she was probably suicidal, and he assumed she had filled the tub to drown herself. But much later, Andrea confessed that she had planned to drown her children that day, but decided against it. Andrea would be released once again, and the Yates were instructed by Dr. Saeed to supervise her around the clock and not let her be alone with the children for any amount of time and under any circumstances. Once again, they did not follow medical advice. On the morning of June 20th, 2001, Rusty Yates left for work. His mother, Dora, had been scheduled to arrive an hour later, leaving Andrea alone with their 5 children. Andrea waited for her husband to leave before filling the bathtub with water. Andrea then began drowning her children, starting with John, Paul, and Luke. After drowning them, she laid them in her bed. She then drowned 6-month-old Mary, whom at that time she left floating in the tub. Noah, their 7-year-old, came in and asked what was wrong with Mary when he saw her floating in the tub. He then got scared and he ran. But Andrea caught him and drowned him. She then moved Mary to the bed and placed her in John's arms and left Noah floating in the bathtub. After drowning the children, Andrea called 911, repeatedly saying she needed an officer, but refusing to say why.
What's your name? Andrea Yates. What's the problem? I just need him to come. Is your husband there? No. What's the problem? I need him to come. I need to know why we're coming, ma'am. Is he there standing next to you? She? Or me? Are you having a disturbance? Are you ill or what? Yes, I'm ill. You need an ambulance? No, I need a police officer. You have sent an ambulance.
And then she phoned her husband, urging him to come home immediately. Andrea calmly confessed to the murders, stating that she believed she was saving her children from eternal damnation. She claimed that she was not a good mother and that the children were not developing correctly and that she herself was marked by Satan. She said that when the state punished her for killing her kids, then Satan himself would be destroyed. Andrea was then arrested and charged with capital murder. District Attorney Chuck Rosenthal asked for the death penalty. The prosecution team argued that Andrea knew what she was doing was wrong, as evident by her calm demeanor. Guys, I disagree. I think she was having a mental episode, and I think her husband, Rusty, should have been held accountable. He was culpable in those children's deaths. Now, her defense team argued that she was suffering from severe mental illness and that her actions were a result of her psychosis. I agree wholeheartedly. Andrea was convicted of capital murder. However, the jury refused the death penalty option. Thank you, jury, for doing your job and seeing the right thing. She was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole after 40 years. Now, this case shocked the nation, and it sparked debates about mental illness, maternal responsibility, and the criminal justice system role in handling such cases. It also raised ethical and legal questions about the treatment of mentally ill defendants in our criminal justice system. It also, in my opinion, highlighted how extreme religious beliefs coupled with mental illness can be tragic. Also highlights the failure of the system to get child protective services involved to protect these children. In 2005, a Texas Court of Appeals reversed the convictions. Why? Because California psychiatrist and prosecution witness Dr. Part Dietz admitted he had given materially false testimony during the trial. Guys, basically, he lied on the stand. Okay. I don't know why we're saying it's false. He just flat out lied. In his testimony, he stated that shortly before the murders, an episode of Law and Order had aired featuring a woman who drowned her children and was then acquitted of murder by reason of insanity. However, guys, no such episode existed at the time of his testimony. It wouldn't be until 2 years later that Law and Order would do an episode based in part on Andrea Yates's case. Andrea was given a new trial in 2006 and entered a plea of not guilty by reason of insanity. I agree with that plea. Now, Rusty once said that doctors never told him how ill Andrea was. But according to Dr. Syed's testimony during the trial, he confirmed he had advised Rusty not to leave his wife unattended. However, Rusty began leaving Andrea alone with the children in the weeks leading up to the drownings for short periods of time, apparently believing it would improve her independence despite doctor's instructions. Okay, Rusty, I get that you want to support your wife and you don't want her to feel like she can't be a mom and take care of her kids. However, the doctor told you she was a danger to herself and your children and not to leave her alone. I'm going to just go on a limb here and say, as a NASA engineer, if you tell an astronaut to not do something, you expect them to not do it, right? Or they would probably get kicked out of the NASA program. Just me guessing. Now, Rusty had announced at a family gathering the weekend before the drownings that he had decided to leave Andrea home alone for an hour each morning and evening so that she would not become totally dependent on him and his mother for her maternal responsibilities. Excuse the hell out of me, Rusty. The doctors told you she could not be left alone. She was not able to be the mother she wanted to be or should be for those children. So, her being dependent on you and your mom is what families do for one another. Now, Andrea's mother expressed shock when she heard of Rusty's plan, saying Andrea wasn't stable enough to care for the children. She noted that Andrea demonstrated she wasn't in her right mind when she nearly choked baby Mary by trying to feed her solid food instead of formula. Okay, guys, I told you I would bring this up because I found this very interesting. Rusty had bragged about never changing a diaper, yet they had 4 children at the time. So, you wanted to have as many children as nature would allow, but you didn't want to be a father like nature requires you to be. You left this young mother to do everything, take care of the house, the children, her ailing father, and you want to brag that you never changed a diaper? Guys, that could not have helped Andrea's mental health because having young children is hard. And if you have no help from your spouse and you have 4 young kids, that would wear down anyone, even someone who has never experienced any type of depression or postpartum psychosis. That would cause some huge mental issues. Andrea's first psychiatrist, Dr. Eileen Starbranch, testified that she urged Andrea and Rusty to not have any more children after the fourth one, as it was a guarantee that she would have future psychotic depression. Once again, they did not listen to medical orders. They conceived their fifth and final child approximately 7 weeks after she was discharged. Now, prosecutors did look into Rusty, but decided it's not necessarily criminal to be a bad husband. I disagree. He was not just a bad husband, he was accountable. He was told not to leave his wife alone with children because she could harm them or herself. To me, it is the same thing as if he would have left his children out on a corner alone for an hour. That is child abuse. That is abandonment. So, how in the hell Harris County didn't think they could charge him with even simple child abuse? I will never understand. Luckily, on July 26, 2006, after 3 days of deliberations, a Texas jury found Andrea not guilty by reason of insanity. She was consequently committed to the court by the court to the high security North Texas State Hospital, where she received medical treatment and much needed psychiatric care. And a little tidbit, she was a roommate of Dina Schlosser, which is another woman who we covered earlier in an episode. In January 2007, Andrea was moved to Kerrville State Hospital, a low security state mental hospital where she remains to this day. Andrea is eligible to undergo a review each and every year that would determine if she is fit to be released from the mental facility. Andrea has declined to be obsessed and lives out her days in the facility making crafts that are sold at craft fairs across the state. All of the proceeds from those sales go to the Yates Children Memorial Fund, which helps people suffering from postpartum depression. Andrea's attorney says that Andrea is where she wants to be and where she needs to be. I want to give Andrea props, credit for realizing she still needs help. There are so many that would do anything they could to get out. I admire the fact she is still believing she needs help and medication. In the years following Andrea's trial, Rusty did divorce Andrea. He got remarried and he had a child and then divorced again in 2015. Rusty still speaks with his ex wife, Andrea. He says about once a month, and he says he has forgiven her. Now, Andrea's brother went on Larry King Live and told the host that once Rusty said they were wasting their time treating Andrea because depressed people just need a swift kick in the pants. Once again, Rusty, you are a NASA engineer and not a medical doctor. I'm not a medical doctor, an engineer, or a lawyer, but I will say kicking a depressed person in the pants is going to piss them off and most likely make their situation worse. So, they do say Rusty has since changed his views on depression. He has been vocal about the need for better mental health care and has advocated for greater awareness of the dangers of untreated postpartum mental illness. Now, I'm going to say, I really hope he believes that and that he is not just saying that to try to relieve himself of his culpability in this. Because it is easy and reasonable to say that Rusty's decisions had catastrophic consequences for children and Andrea. And it is important to note that the healthcare system failed them as well. Rusty and Andrea were told not to have any more children. He was told not to leave her alone with the children, and he did both. How that does not make him culpable, I do not understand. It is often said that Dr. Syed was responsible for recognizing and properly treating Andrea's psychosis. Not a medically untrained person like Rusty, other members of the family, or their out of touch pastor. Dr. Syed reluctantly prescribed Andrea Haldol, the same drug that worked for her in 1999, but after a few weeks, he took her off the drug, citing his concerns about long term side effects. However, her condition seemed to be worsening 2 days before the drownings, but the doctor refused to try Haldol again or to recommit her to the hospital. The family believed that a combination of antidepressants improperly prescribed by Dr. Syed in the days before the tragedy were responsible for her psychotic behavior. Andrea had been taking 450 milligrams of the antidepressant Effexor, twice the recommended dose, for about a month before killing her children. Homicidal ideation was added to the warning label for Effexor as a rare adverse event in 2005. So I do believe that Dr. Syed should have rehospitalized her and tried medication. I get you want to be cautious about long term side effects, but my understanding of postpartum psychosis is it does eventually go away with treatment. So now, Rusty did feel that Andrea was too sick to be discharged from her last day in the hospital in 2001. He even claimed that he noticed the staff lowered their heads as if in shame or embarrassment when she was released. But, guys, the hospital had no other choice due to the 10-day psychiatric hospitalization insurance constraints that Blue Cross Blue Shield put in their plan. I want to say insurance company should not have the right to overrule a doctor. If a doctor says a patient needs to stay in the hospital, damn it, they should stay in the hospital. The Andrea Yates case has had a profound impact on public awareness of postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. It has highlighted the importance of recognizing and treating mental health issues in new mothers and the need for support for families dealing with severe mental illness. I want to say that those medical professionals should have alerted CPS or maybe even a family member when they found out Rusty was leaving Andrea alone with the children against doctor's orders. I would hope, even though the Harris County CPS system has been known to fail on multiple occasions, just maybe they would have gotten it right. And just maybe they could have gotten Rusty to understand that Andrea shouldn't be left alone, or maybe they could have removed the children. But Andrea was failed by her husband, his family, medical doctors, and CPS. I want to say if you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please reach out to a professional. Help is out there, and it is never too late to seek it. And there should be no shame in seeking mental health. No shame. You can call or text the National Maternal Mental Health Hotline at 1-833 TLC Mama or at 1-833 852 6262 for free confidential support 24/7. Now, this hotline is available before, during, and after pregnancy, and they have counselors who speak English and Spanish. I want to thank you for diving into the Andrea Yates case with me. It is a case that has bothered me since it happened, and I have always and still feel that Rusty should have suffered consequences for not following doctor's instructions. I firmly believe if he was told to give Andrea insulin every day and then he went against doctor's orders and she died from it, he would have been charged. So I don't understand why he was never held accountable. Nothing I can do about it, right? I will ask you, don't forget to like this video. Leave a comment below letting us know your thoughts about this case. And I would love to hear your thoughts and views on whether or not you think Rusty should have been held accountable. And if you've liked what you've seen, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and then become a member by clicking the join button, where you will get early access to Dearest Mother's Darkest Secret videos, as well as exclusive channel content. Now, join me for the next episode as we uncover another dark tale of motherhood gone wrong. Until then, as always, stay curious and remember, sometimes the darkest secrets are the ones we keep closest. I am Teri True Crime, and until next time, stay safe, watch out for crime, enjoy your wine time. Until next episode.